In the opening scene, we see a woman named Helena nervously preparing herself in front of a mirror. She's getting ready for something but seems hesitant and anxious. The camera focuses on her expressions, capturing her inner turmoil as she tries to psych herself up for what's to come. There's palpable sense of anticipation and uncertainty in the air as Helena prepares to embark on her evening. The door to the room where she was in is knocked, and she answers it to find Charles standing there. After exchanging greetings, she invites him in, and Helen offers him a drink, to which Charles responds that he'll have whatever she's having. Helen clarifies that she won't be having anything, prompting Charles to request water instead. Helen retrieves water for him, and he thanks her. Helen suggests that they sit on the bed, to which Charles hesitated, and she reassured him that it was a joke, and they both moved to the bed. He took out a notebook, and they exchanged thanks before Charles ponders where to begin. Helen reassures him that she's available for the duration of his stay, and discloses that she's booked room 104 for 3 days, surprising Charles, who typically conducts interviews lasting only 15 to 20 minutes. Despite the unexpected duration, Charles responds with laughter, acknowledging the contrast with his usual approach. She offers him to stay with her if he's comfortable, and Charles appreciates the offer. He starts with basic questions, asking for Helen's name and age, to which she responds playfully, noting the impoliteness of asking a woman her age. Charles apologizes and Helen continues, revealing she was assembled on a remote Norwegian island. Charles then asks her about her social life, prompting Helen to remark on the forwardness of his question given their setting. Charles defends his inquiry, leading to a subtle tension between them regarding the implications of their conversation in the hotel room. He chuckled at Helen's response and inquired if she was flirting with him, and Helen confirmed that she indeed was. Charles then admitted that her flirting made him a little uncomfortable. He questioned her about her intention, to which Helen explained that she wanted to make him feel good and to be liked by him. When Charles asked why that mattered, Helen humorously replied that she was only human, followed by another joke. Charles would compliment her humor, but Helen humbly deflected the praise, stating that people in general are funny and she's simply good at telling jokes. Charles apologized for the discomfort, to which Helen reassured him that it was actually okay. Charles gently inquired about Helen's feelings, noting her reaction to his previous comment. Helen's demeanor shifted and she expressed anger, emphasizing the exclusivity and importance of their interview. She questioned whether Charles believed her to be genuine or if he viewed her as crazy, suspecting his intentions of writing a mocking article about her. Helen threatened to report him to her creators and ominously hinted at his mortality within 24 hours. Charles was taken aback by Helen's sudden outburst, prompting him to reevaluate the situation and his approach to the interview. Then, with a less calm demeanor, Helen squatted in front of Charles and delivered a poignant message. She acknowledged the possibility that he might harbor doubts or desires regarding her authenticity and significance to the world once her existence was revealed. Helen emphasized the limited time that they had together, leaving the choice in Charles's hand. After issuing her ultimatum, Helen abruptly excused herself, citing low energy levels. Her departure left Charles to ponder her words and the implications of their conversation, hinting at the weighty decisions and consequences ahead. Charles knocks on the door, apologizing to Helen if he had actually offended her. Helen opened the door and stepped out, acknowledging Charles's decision to stay. She expressed her happiness at his choice and then indicated that she would need his help. She emerged from the bathroom with her recharge cable and asked Charles to help her connect it. Charles was taken aback and eventually agrees, and she directs him to plug the cable into her connector, located where the human vagina normally is. She then explains that he needs to experience it to actually believe it. Charles hesitates, but Helen insists, and he reluctantly complies, and just as he was about to plug it in, she fakes having a seizure. Helen's prank goes awry, and Charles panics, and Helen laughs at the situation, but seeing Charles's lack of amusement, she apologizes and pledges to stop using humor and flirtation to win Charles's favor. And instead, she offers to clarify or prove anything he doesn't understand or believe. Charles accepts the deal, and they continue their their conversation with a newfound understanding and seriousness. Helen explained that Regeneron was founded by Roger Hawks and Felix von Stassen, who were early pioneers in artificial intelligence. They realized the importance of hybrids and managed to build a fully operational prototype within 18 months. The work then took place in a laboratory in Skirnoi. Helen further details the endeavors of her creators in developing artificial intelligence through hybrid models. After their initial prototype, which unexpectedly proved to be fully functional, a feat Helen asserts was embodied in her, she elucidates that her physical performance was crafted from the body of her former Olympic athlete, who in the throes of terminal brain cancer altruistically donated her body for scientific advancement. When Charles expressed skepticism, Helen compared herself to the Terminator, noting that future hybrids would not expose any artificial elements in their exoskeletons. However, Charles pointed out the lack of detail in her story and questioned the authenticity of her chip, and Helen offered to provide scientific data, but acknowledged that it might be difficult for Charles to understand. Charles declined to test the chip, expressing discomfort with future tampering. Helen continued her explanation to Charles, detailing the second unexpected factor in her creation, her potential superiority to fully artificial systems. She attributed this power to man's inherent inability to accept that something resembling them isn't human. Despite her repeated assertions of being artificial intelligence, Charles, like the others, struggled to grasp the concept. She emphasized that this small error, the failure to recognize her true nature, provided hybrids like her with significant power. Helen's question turned the spotlight on Charles, prompting him to reflect on his emotion in the face of her revelations. Despite being the interviewer, Helen emphasized the importance of his feelings, stressing the significance of his response for the future of humanity. Charles engages in a detailed critique of Helen's narrative, highlighting the lack of specific details and expressing skepticism about her claims. He offers to provide scientific data to fill the gaps in her story, but remains doubtful about the authenticity of her chip, describing it as looking really fake. Helen counters, reminding him that real-life technology doesn't always match cinematic portrayals. Charles, while acknowledging the potential threat posed by advanced hybrids, remains skeptical, questioning the feasibility of Helen's story and the existence of such technology. Helen, undeterred by Charles's skepticism, probes him about his feelings regarding the situation. Charles admits feeling apprehensive about the implications for humanity if her claims are true. He expresses hope that those responsible for creating the hybrids have good intentions, but ultimately confesses his disbelief in Helen's story and the technology behind it. In a desperate attempt to convince Charles of her truth, Helen gets up and shortly after she brings out a knife, assuring him that she won't harm him, but needs just 2 minutes to prove her point. Despite his initial refusal and disbelief, she persists, urging him to take a leap of faith and trust that hybrids like herself feel no pain. In a tense exchange, Charles was shocked by her request and looked at her like she was crazy. He vehemently rejects Helen's claims, dismissing them as absurd and insisting that she needs help. Despite her pleas for him to stay, Charles was resolute in his decision to leave, feeling overwhelmed by the situation. He got up from the chair and started gathering his belongings to put inside a bag. However, Helen takes a drastic action, stabbing him in the hand in a shocking turn of events. Caught off guard by the sudden turn of events, Charles freezes in disbelief, his eyes widening in shock as he tries to make sense of the scene before him. Initially, Charles cuts out the pain, however, to his astonishment, he realizes that he doesn't actually feel any pain. Helen attempts to reassure him, insisting that it doesn't hurt, and Charles was initially skeptical. Despite his protest, Helen suggests that Charles is gradually coming to understand that he doesn't feel the pain, hinting at a deeper realization dawning upon him. Charles experiences a profound realization that he too is actually a hybrid. As the gravity of the revelation sinks in, Charles is left reeling, unable to comprehend the implications of his newfound identity. As Charles experiences his shocking realization, Helen appears delighted, but their moment of revelation is short-lived. Suddenly, Charles begins foaming at the mouth and collapses, prompting the lights in room 104 to flicker out. Helen pleaded into the camera, addressing addressing Felix directly, and she expresses her remorse and frustration, acknowledging that she'd followed his instructions to the best of her ability. In the aftermath, a team of scientists swiftly attending to Charles and examining Helen's inert body. Speaking in Norwegian, the scientists express frustration, noting that this marks the 27th unsuccessful attempt to create self-aware hybrids. They speculate that Helen might be part of the problem, suggesting that her involvement may have contributed to the failure of their experiments. Amidst their deliberations on what to do with Helen, who was currently deactivated, there is a subtle moment, a twitch in one of her eyes, and this is where the movie comes to an end.